My name is Heather Swanigan, and I'm going to be talking about interracial relationships because I'm in an interracial relationship. I am Caucasian and my husband is African American. We have been together for 9 years and married for 6. Interracial relationships are everywhere, and times have evolved since the slavery days. There are still people that do not believe in interracial relationships. My grandma and grandpa are a few people, but I am sure that there are plenty just more like them. There are few things that I'm going to talk about from the slavery days to the present. Interracial romance has been a point of consternation in America since the first settlers established colonies here in the 17th century. About 1664, Maryland banned interracial marriages due to questions over whether the offspring of a black slave and a white person would be considered a free person or property. In following years, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and South Carolina instituted anti-miscegenation laws which banned interracial marriages. In 1691, Virginia outlawed interracial couples. When slavery was abolished by the 13th Amendment in 1865, many southern states instituted what were known as the Black Codes. In addition to stripping freed slaves of most of their newly acquired rights, these codes continued the prohibition of marriage between blacks and whites. This was based on the commonly held notation that Africans and Native Americans as well were inferior races and interbreeding would pollute the white gene pool. So when Congress tried to override the Black Codes, by issuing a series of laws from 1866 to 1875, the Supreme Court declared most of the legislation void and upheld the Southern states' right to outlaw interracial marriage. Since the Supreme Court struck down the last of America's anti-miscegenation laws, the number of interracial marriages has more than tripled. According to the Census Bureau, the number of mixed-race marriages rose from 300,000 in 1970 to 1.2 million in 1990. Between 1960 and 1990, the percentage of African American marriages involving a white spouse more than tripled. Also, a result of being raised during the Civil Rights era, the 1960s, many of today's parents have a much more liberal attitude toward interracial dating. However, although the Census Bureau statistics indicate a rapidly growing acceptance of couples who date across racial boundaries, there are a considerable number of people who do not accept interracial romances as a legitimate choice, which I would say my grandparents on my mother's side. Opponents of interracial dating contend that those who date or marry outside of their race are betraying their families and abandoning their cultural heritage. Author Lawrence Otis Graham feels that interracial marriage undermines ability to introduce our children to black role models who accept their racial identity with pride. According to the 1993 census, 310,000 interracial marriages were registered by 1970, 651,000 by 1980, and 1,161,000 by 1992, accounting for 0.7%, 0.1%, and 2.2% of the total marriage numbers during those years, respectively. With the introduction of the mixed race category, the 2000 census showed interracial marriage to be somewhat further widespread, accounting for 2,669,558 such marriages, or 4.9% of the total. I have told you a little bit about slavery and interracial relationships. After listening to me, I hope that the next time you see an interracial relationship or couple, you will not stare and make comments and try to accept it. Seriously, when you see a couple that is in an interracial relationship, think about the things that they go through or they have went through to get where they are. That is the same thing with mixed children and adults. Thank you, and I hope you have learned a lot.